Is this where? Oh, there we go. That is on. What's up? Hey, everybody. How's it going? How you doing? Hello. I'm Josh Saleh. I'll be moderating this panel. It's all about publishing from ideas to shelf, and we have an incredible stacked cast for you right here to ask questions. We'll get into it, but I want to introduce the people that we have. So we have Peter Vaughn, co-founder of Cardboard Alchemy right here. We also have Cassandra Chowdhury, who is the co-founder of Ixion Gameworks as well, and just big Kickstarter, $7 million with Game Changer that you worked on, which nuts. Kimmy Hughes, owner and lead designer at Gold Lasso Games, and then Damon Stay, co-owner as well at Ixion Gameworks as well. So before we open it up to Q&As and stuff to the audience, if we could just go down and talk about what you do, how you got started, and what your current day-to-day is. And we'll start with you, Peter.
Okay, sure. I am co-founder at Cardboard Alchemy. It is the third board game or game company that I have started. The first one was Facebook games where I was convinced I could beat Farmville. And the second one was making board games, which then parlayed into working with Breaking Games as their head of development. And this was all via some Kickstarter launches and then some development work for Breaking Games, trying to build their line of family, strategy, and party. Eventually, I felt like I knew enough about that to start Cardboard Alchemy. We are on our 6th game, which is live on Kickstarter right now, which is called Whisperwood, but we are most well known for Flamecraft, the game that really just took off. People love those little dragons, and we do too. So we are a Burbank-based company, so this is our local con. And I have a team that's remote all over the world, and we're just making games. So we're happy to talk about publishing.
Also, love your earrings. I don't know if y'all can see the earrings.
Yeah.
They're toasts.
I do wear a lot of Flamecraft or Andromeda's Edge or Critter Kitchen, eventually Whisperwood. Yeah.
That's awesome. Cassandra?
Yeah.
I'm Cassandra Chowdhury. I call myself a game producer, because I come from the film world. I feel like it's a really great catch-all kind of word. I feel like developer isn't quite right, project manager isn't quite right. I am doing all the logistics side of work at Ixion Gameworks, which is the company that I co-own with Damon over here. I got into it because Damon is a designer, and he's a mad genius that had all these great ideas and didn't know how to actually execute on them. So I was like, you know what? I am good at this stuff. So kind of took over the logistical side of the company. On top of that, I also just recently was working at Warren James, which is a very large company that does merchandising. I was working on a lot of IP games, including the Game Changer board game, which you referenced, which was on Kickstarter a few months ago, made $7 million. So I also have that kind of IP side, and I think that's probably the side I'll talk about here, since Damon is also here, and he's going to be talking about our small independent company. I'm no longer at Warren James. I really disliked the job, but I did get a lot of experience there working with IPs and big games.
Hi, I'm Kimmy Hughes. I am a very small company. I make TTRPGs, so I'm taking on Dungeons and Dragons, by myself. I work with a bunch of contractors who I go to all the time. I can't afford to have them on all the time. Eventually I will, someday, when I have my $1 million TTRPG, because that's a thing. And so right now I'm at the stage where I've started the company. Company's been around, won awards for 6 years. I'm the designer. I am the everything. I'm the art director. I do not draw or any of that. So I find amazing people through connections, through going to cons like this, to pull in to work on the different projects that I design, to take them to fruition and eventually to retail.
I'm Damon Stay. I am the co-founder of Ixion Gameworks. It's a relatively new company, even though the game is not as new. We didn't expect to publish it ourselves, and so that's been a learning experience getting to the publishing aspect of that. It's the only game, even though we have expansions out and more expansions coming. We're at the forefront of our publishing experience. And I would be classified more as a designer / developer in that case. From the publisher's perspective, I would be both of those things. And also, I have the art director for this situation, which a lot of developers they'll occupy that role. Sovereign's doing super well. It's over on the floor, and I'm really, really happy with it. But it's small, and we are definitely a small company. We intend to stay a small company, and we have like a very specific ethos that we want to be pushing through our games and making sure that we make games that we want to make, that we want to see in the world.
Awesome. Now, we have such a diverse group here, and I feel like we've all gotten our start somewhere, either being in the game industry or just being like, you know what, this sounds like something I want to take part in. This is going to be an open question to anybody who wants to kind of answer it and kind of be an open forum. What were some pitfalls that you all found when you were publishing or designing games that you weren't expecting?
There's a lot of, as far as the Kickstarter goes, because one of the things I think happens to a lot of designers is do I want to go pitch it to some company, or do I want to try and take on the publisher hat, right? I always knew that I want to take on the publisher hat, but what that comes with logistics and freight, and it comes with finding out that in 2020 the freight containers went from 3,000 to 15,000 each, and our first game was in the hole quite a bit. You have a lot to plan. I took this one picture one time of a convention where I was setting up a booth, and the minute you decide to take on the publisher hat, you are hawking your game everywhere. You are doing all of the things. You're doing the distribution channels, and it's a fun part. I actually love that part, but the pitfalls are not being prepared for that part, saving extra funds for all sorts of emergencies, and finding out that even when you have a company in Burbank, that California wants some tax, and Burbank wants some tax, and everywhere you have an employee wants some tax. So, it's a lot of stuff.
Feel free.
For me, one of the biggest things, because I was self-taught, like many of you in this room, I got my idea for a game, and I'm like, oh, okay, I'm gonna do this, okay, and then I kind of learned myself how much of the knowledge of the industry is trapped in people's brains and nowhere where you can access it. Like, I actually come from like the educational world, so I'm like, there must be a book on how to do this, and I guess there probably are now, but like when I first started, kind of. When I first was out there, I'm like, oh, okay, and I was looking up how to do things online. There was like 1 or 2 blogs that had some information. Sometimes it was out of date. So like having to go to people and interact with them and go talk to my heroes, some of whom were amazing and some of whom were not, and ask them for advice, like, how do I do this? How did you do this? And like finding mentors in the industry that could help me be successful was pivotal, and also frustrating that it's just like, it's like folk music that like is never written down and is passed on. It's like oral knowledge. It's very strange.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. Although I kind of don't feel like it's a pitfall, just because I like the community aspect of games. But absolutely 100% true. I would say that when you are self-publishing or starting a publishing company, you have to be deeply comfortable with a lot of unknowns and a lot of potential for risk, and a lot of like figuring things out on your own. There's so many aspects, especially when I'm talking about like a brand new publishing company. If you're bigger, you have more, people, you have more employees, you can kind of divide and conquer, and just focus on the things you're good at. But before you're at that point, you just have to be very willing to stumble through a lot of stuff. It's like, oh, how does VAT work? I don't know what even that is. And how do the taxes work? How does distribution work? What % are they gonna take? Oh my God. It's just, there's so many things you have to learn, and it's one of the pieces of advice I've heard so many times is like, do something small first, just so you kind of like find your way. We didn't do that, but I can see the value in doing that, because you really have to be willing to not have any idea what you're doing for a good long time.
Yeah, definitely. you can prepare. I think what I learned is that you can prepare as much as you possibly can. You even if you know what you don't know, you will find out things you didn't know and couldn't know, and now you need to know immediately. Certainly, like manufacturing distribution was our Achilles heel, because we had a lot of experience in design and a lot of experience in marketing. Certainly, I have lots and lots of experience in marketing from the creative side. And it was not that horrible to learn it from the technical mechanical side. But as soon as we got to manufacturing, like all of the materials stuff, I'm very comfortable with. But the second that we had to deal with the human element, it became far harder to know exactly who to trust and when to trust, to understand who to listen to and who not to listen to. And what advice to take and from whom, especially when time is of the essence and any small issue can start to snowball. And so you have to catch it very quickly before it starts to get worse and worse and worse. You can't just ignore something ever and hope that it's going to improve. I think the main thing that we learned over time, and I think Cassandra, you'd agree with that, is that if something is starting to go wrong, it will keep going wrong. It's not going to ever just improve on its own, even if someone says it might. It probably won't.
Yeah, literally, just trust people when they show you who they are. It's like, oh, it was a bad day for them. Give them the benefit of the doubt. Don't do that. Just walk away.
Yeah, somebody doesn't have to be a bad person to have kind of to not be the right person to work with in any part of your manufacturing, distribution, or production pipeline.
I do want to say, though, because you brought up the blogs, I mean, the information is tucked away, but I am thankful that there are blogs about it. Like Jamie Stegmaier has a blog, which he's very transparent and says, I did this. I got this fulfillment company called Spiral Galaxy, which is the same place I called up because he told me that they were good. Yeah. So we're very fortunate in this particular industry to have people who, like the first time I did a Kickstarter, I just sent a message to another Kickstarter person like, how'd you figure out the shipping? You know, I mean, there are a lot of resources among the community. I do wish it was written down, but since it's not, you can ask a lot.
Yeah,
that's good.
The challenge, and the reason I always bring it up is it's hard when you're new and you don't know anyone in the community,
Right.
which is kind of where I was. Like, I was a player of TTRPGs who didn't know anybody who was making them when I first started. So that's the first kind of hurdle you have to get over is hello, I would like to make a game. What's your name? Can you tell me how to do that? And then it gets easier.
Yeah, you definitely have to get out of your comfort zone a lot and motivate yourself to find those answers or to talk to people you might know. I also forgot to mention what I do, which I should probably talk about. I'm also a board game publisher called Change My Mind. It's a party game, so we're in Mass as well. So it's been out for 2 years. I'm also a TV host, so I do a little bit back and forth. So I can help with the party game kind of side and Mass side as well. Great. Well, thank you for talking about the pitfalls. Now that we got that out of the way, now, Peter, you mentioned when someone creates a game, you kind of have a choice depending on if you want to publish it yourself or if you want to find someone to publish it for you. Right. And this is a question for everybody. How did you go about making that decision of going, you know what, I'm going to take a bet on myself. I'm going to take this on rather than selling it to someone else?
That's a tough one. I was in the development position at Breaking Games for a long time, and there were a lot of people who pitched games, and they were thinking about doing it. It is all the things we talked about in terms of there are pitfalls. They can be really rewarding because you are then going to reap the benefit. You're going to make most of the money versus a small sliver of the money. But the people who are passionate about design and just don't want that extra headache and want to move on from design to design to design. I mean, you got to follow your heart on that one. You know, I personally like to see all the nuts and bolts of every part of it. So I knew I wanted to help make games from beginning to end. But if you particularly enjoy a certain part of it, then then there's nothing wrong with focusing on that part and not taking on the whole thing. So.
I'll let Damon talk about the specifics of Sovereign, but I would say generally what I would always advise people to do is if you have some big, epic, crazy, cool game, you might have a good chance on self-publishing, on crowdfunding, which is very counterintuitive, but the bigger the game, I feel like the easier it is to self-publish exactly right now in this moment. If you have a small game, if you have a party game, if you have like a 20 card game, don't crowdfund it. It's not going to work. You might be like one of the lucky few, I don't know. But right now, the culture of crowdfunding just does not have any interest in that kind of game. And if that's the kind of game you're making, try and find a publisher. Publishers are looking for that stuff. They want those tiny games. They want those easy to learn kind of casual or gateway games. It's a great time to bring those kinds of games to publishers. So that's like the most important advice, I think, to anybody who's thinking about crowdfunding. Don't crowdfund your tiny game. It's going to be so hard, and you're going to spend a lot of money and not get a lot in return.
For me, I went and I met people and I asked them, and I had one person say, okay, if you go to a publisher, you can get credit, you can get creative control, not all of it, but some of it, or you can get some money. You get one of those three things. You don't get all of those things. And I panicked because I'm a little bit of a control freak. And I was like, okay, I guess I'm going to self-publish because I want credit, I want control, and I know there's probably not going to be money, but So I decided, I was like, okay, so I started looking into self-publishing, and it just seemed like a better fit for me. I had done a lot of different creative work in the past, never professionally, but I felt like confident that I could do all those other pieces. I was an administrator for a school. I'm like, okay, if I could run a school for 600 kids, I could probably get something to market. It was really hard still, so just so you know. I thought it'd be easy, it was not. So that's kind of what my journey was. I really liked creating a brand and something that really spoke for my voice as a kind of like an artist in a way. So in TTRPGs, I was treating it more as like an art form, and this is my thing that I'm bringing and telling a story in the world, and having that control was just really important to me, so that's why I self-published.
When we first brought Sovereign to conventions, we were not intending to self-publish at all. It was a huge game. It's a massive game with an enormous, psychotic art budget that horrified publishers as well. But we didn't want to deal with that risk. We didn't know how to deal with the production side of this. We didn't really want to. We wanted it to be in as many people's hands as possible, and I didn't expect to be self-publishing it. Now I'm very happy we did, because when we went to Kickstarter, I had the luxury and horror of both self-publishing my massive magnum opus game and watching my other game be published by a big publisher at the exact same time and going straight to Barnes & Noble while we were doing our Kickstarter. So in the same month, the two games that were at the top of my list were going in totally different directions, and I was able to watch what happens in both sides simultaneously. With the Kickstarter, I was very happy. Everything was going well. I had creative control, like you just said. I had what I needed, which is I had control of the product and I had control of my creative output. On the other side, with the game that I watched a giant publisher put into other people's hands in a way that I couldn't do, I had no control of what that thing looked like, where it went, how it was talked about, what that rule book looked like. I could give my input, but none of that guarantees any of that output. And I was surprised at how many little things, again, we're talking about snowballing things, little tiny things made me very, very uncomfortable, like the title or the cover, or little things about tiles and stuff, that I could control if I was self-publishing. I couldn't do if I handed it over to a publisher, even if they had so much more reach. This is a weird industry to get into if you're getting into it for money. This is it's a weird choice.
If you like money, be in the Wall Street or something.
Yeah. I think that an important thing to understand as coming from a designer or publisher perspective is that I came to this from film and from video games, and in that world, designer and director mean roughly the same thing. In board games, and I don't actually know in TTRPG how that would translate, but in board games and card games, certainly it does not translate that way, and is far closer to maybe author or screenwriter, where you are handing this thing off and then it will be completely out of your control at that point, and someone else is going to take that thing to the finish line, and it could go in a very, very different direction. And if you're very comfortable with that, let's say you start as a screenwriter, then that's great, and you'll be used to that. In my case, I'm not. And so it feels much more comfortable in the self-publishing route, even if I can't get it nearly as far.
And some of you might be noticing with your own experiences or paths that what we're saying might contradict what you've done and what might have been successful, and that is totally okay. That is the wild thing about this career, this industry. It's not A to Z. It's A to L to Alpha to 5 to Mars, and somehow you made it.
Yeah.
So just so you know, everyone's journey is different, and even though we've gotten to where we are, we don't know everything, and we're still learning. Speaking of learning, I'm sure there's tons of questions maybe in the audience, so I wanted to take a break and see if anybody in the audience has any questions. Yes, someone's slowly raising their hand.
This question might be more for Kimmy. So for developing your own TTRPG, what would you say are, I don't know, some of a handful of the most important milestones and techniques?
Start by researching shipping. It may seem very backwards, but that actually will inform your creative process if you're publishing it yourself. It's been very trendy lately to put TTRPGs into boxes or to have dice included and things like that. Those have very different rates and tariffs and et cetera, et cetera. So start from the end, be like, hey, because shipping just a book, because it is an educational material, has very different tax rates than all the other Kickstarter stuff you have. So if you look into shipping first, then you can inform if you're crowdfunding or whatever it is, do I want to promise people to put it in a box? Do slip covers change a book from a book to something completely different, even though it's just a little slip cover on a book? It's really annoying. So learn about, research that a bit, and then you can come up with your kind of design from the beginning. In education, it's called backwards planning. We're like, what do I want the kids to know? Let's go, how do I teach them that? Where do you want to ship it? Where do you want it to be? Go check out some retailers too. This is something I learned way too late. Go talk to some retailers, see what they have in their friendly local gaming store, how they have them on display. Like a zine size is really popular right now and very easy for them to put on their shelves. Big full books like Daggerheart and TTR and Dungeon and Dragon stuff, they have more limited space and it's much more expensive space. So that'll inform way back in the beginning when you start your writing and when you're doing your mechanics and all that stuff, what you want the final product to be. That'll tell you how many pages you have to work with, how much art you're gonna need to fill a zine size versus 8.5 by 11 size, and all of that.
Can you explain what a zine size is? Because I have no idea
Yes,
what that
sorry.
means.
So in TTRPGs, there's like the full-size books that are generally more expensive. Those that generally have like 200 to 300 pages. That's like 8.5 by 11, normal book size. Zine size is smaller. It's like 6 by 9 generally. And they're just easier. They're usually a lot thinner. They usually have soft covers. Those are more like the indie vibe. If you were going to a record store, that would be like the vinyl in the day. I know now it's switched around, whatever. But that's like, oh, it's scruffy little like indie TTRPG players. So that's kind of the vibe with those usually. But the retailers who have them they sit really nicely on like those rotating magazine things. So a lot of times, friendly local gaming stores can stock a lot of different ones, but they only stock like 5 or 6 copies of them, versus the D&Ds where they have like 50 copies of the book in the back and they take up a bunch of shelf space.
I'll just interject that once you get into different components as well, depending on what you want to put in a box, then you find out really fun things like if you are shipping direct from China and you have liquid core dice or you have sand timers, you can hide drugs in that stuff. So you actually have to like go through hoops. This is only relevant if you are shipping direct from China. If you're doing like freight, then you don't have to worry about it. But there are a lot of like little things that you can get snagged on that you just would not expect. So
Cards and actually dice too have to be tested to prove that they're not toxic for children, even if you're not selling them to children. Ask me how I found that out. So just be like, again, start with the shipping and like the laws of that before you like create the product in your head.
Yeah, one cool trick, depending on where you're selling, if you make your game ages 13 and up, then you can get away with testing anything because it's not for kids. So there's a little trick in the trade. Any more questions? Yeah, right here in the front.
So from the moment you have an idea until you publish it, what's the average time that it takes to get your stuff out?
Ooh, so the question was the average time from the thought to publishing.
I worked on a game called Dwellings of Eldervale, which was 7 years from the design to the time that it got out there. But I find that a smaller game, Flamecraft Duels, which we did, a 2-player game that launched last year on Kickstarter, and then was produced in 5 months. So it can be, I often say that about 6 months of manufacturing and 6 months of design dev is about the fastest. Now I know it can go faster if you've got a big team or if there's a lot of push for something, but in general, because of the testing and because of the process and because of the manufacturing, I don't think anything gets too much quicker than a year and can go a lot longer than a year.
Yeah, I'd say that's kind of an impossible question to answer. But like Game Changer, which is was a huge game, it took about a year and a half to design, and then it took 4 or 5 months to prepare for the Kickstarter, and it's still in the process of being manufactured and shipped, and that'll probably take like 6 months to a year. And that was a huge game that went very quickly, in my opinion, because it had a big IP behind it. That I think is an unusual case, like unusually fast.
For me, it really varies. It depends on, I play test my games a lot. I do it all myself at local conventions, this one and a bunch of the other. I live in LA too. Yay, LA. So sometimes, like, it depends on how it's working, how I'm vibing with it, especially for a TTRPG. Sometimes there's small little rules in there that won't happen in playtests a lot. So you'll be playing for like 6 months, you'll run it a bunch of times, and then suddenly this one mechanic will suddenly come in that you wrote and never playtested, and they're like, oh, this doesn't work at all. So for me, generally, my first game, it took me about 2 years to develop it, and that was like a world-building game that I really wanted to be system and setting agnostic, so I kept running into cards that's like weren't totally agnostic for those things, then I have to rewrite it. This last one that I kickstarted, Starscape, I started writing it in, yeah, it took like 6 years, just because it kept almost being there, it kept almost clicking, then there'd be a mechanic that just like wasn't seamless enough. And then there was also, it started in 2022, so there was a lot of like, I'm gonna sit and watch a bunch of TV for like 6 months and not work on it. But usually once I kickstart something, it's generally, like, I usually try and do it within 2 years at the longest. But I'm usually very upfront about that with the Kickstarter, and like keeping them updated on this is what we're doing now, this is what we're doing now. So I'm lucky enough to have very understanding, supporting Kickstarter community.
Yeah, it can vary wildly. Because Sovereign took 10 years just to get to Kickstarter, and then it took more time to actually manufacture and get out. So, I hear all things. There's games I see that take 6 months to go through, and there's games that take way longer. I've seen games take 15 years or more, which seems like too much until I look back at my own catalog. It matters until it's fun and until it's ready. Like, if the game isn't working, then it needs to be made to work. And you see games all the time that are published that clearly were rushed, and a rushed game is not worthwhile to anyone, the publisher or the player. They're going to find out, and the game is not going to do well. And it would have been a better choice to go back to the drawing board and just keep working on it, and just keep going. It's not worth it to rush it out just because you need the game on a shelf.
And with that time in mind, what's good about this community is people love to see your journey from the beginning to the middle to the end. So while you're creating a game, go to different conventions, play test, because the people that played the game in the beginning, 4 or 5 years later, they'll be like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. I feel like I was there with you from the very first step of the journey. So you'll notice a lot of games that have taken 5, 10 years, they've amassed a community, either people in person, email lists, whatever you will. So 10 years is a long time, but now you have 1,000, 2,000 people that are behind you being like, yo, when that game releases, I'm right there with you, which is really cool.
Before Sovereign came out, we had already done tournaments. We had an incredible group of like super fans who were just like on the Discord all the time. And they were literally writing essays to Damon about why this card was too good. And they were like, this is why this card is bad. You need to change it. And I mean, we did. We made a lot of changes because of them. They were invaluable.
Free labor's great. Also, toward the end of your design phase, when you start working with a manufacturer, you'll think you're done, But you'll then get multiple emails of, this is not enough millimeter, we need more bleed, we need this color's not working, and then you'll have to talk to your designer if your designer's not in-house. So that can add another like 3, 4, 5 months, because that manufacturer's also working with 60 other different companies that they have their own designs too. So give yourself more time there. Yeah, right here, top right.
One being like it's like it's very small, but also we're in a moment where crowdfunding tends to reward the bigger project versus the small project that tends to get overlooked. In that case, for a designer who is thinking about trying to go small, it seems maybe that would be gearing itself more to having to go with a traditional publisher to crowdfund. What would designer, what advice would you give designers to look for when seeking out a publisher that makes it worth their time, effort, and artwork, versus instead saying using that same time and effort on a big idea of crowdfunding and seeing what happens?
I'm not sure if I understand the question. Can you?
So the question is mainly, what should a designer look for when they want to start small, but instead go more with a publisher instead of crowdfunding?
So they want to sell the game to a publisher. So you want to take a small game and sell it to a publisher. And so what would you advise if you wanted to sell your game?
I mean, I said earlier, do not crowdfund your small game, and that's literally what you did. So it works out okay for some people.
I disagree. Maybe, I don't know, it depends. I'm still learning.
But it is. But you also were like ready to make it kind of your full-time deal, and you were willing to like put in. This is what I'm doing now. You're treating it as a business, which not every designer can do, because a lot of designers have like other jobs that they can't, not that you don't, other jobs that they need to put most of their effort into. It's very hard. As far as approaching publishers goes, there are so many great resources out there. Cardboard Edison has a compendium that you can pay for. It's not that expensive. And they keep a list of all of the publishers and basically their wish lists. They're not all up to date, but you can go through those, kind of see who is looking for what, and it also has email addresses or like links to submission pages. That is a great way to start reaching out to publishers. You can also start following Pam Walls on YouTube if you don't already. She is a designer and she does a lot of very helpful videos about which publishers are looking for games and how to submit to them. In general, I would say once you actually put together a sell sheet and have a little video, because most publishers ask for a video now. It doesn't need to be good, just needs to show the game. Once you have those two things, submitting to publishers is not that time consuming, and I would strongly suggest doing it. There's no downside, unless you're, emailing weird stuff and you're like, hey, look at my stuff or else. Like, just be nice. And there's no downside to reaching out to publishers. Just make sure that you're actually reading what they're looking for. Don't blast it out to people who are not looking for your thing. Only send it to people. It's like, this is exactly what you're looking for. It's always worth trying, because even if they don't want your game, you kind of are then on their radar, and you can always reach out to them with a different game in the future.
And the industry is small enough that at least like most the nice publishers will be like, okay, hey, we're not looking for this, but I think so-and-so might be. And I've done that before where I've had people come pitch games to me, and it just wasn't kind of like I was talking about like my brand earlier. It wasn't really in my brand sphere, even though I really liked the game. And so I was like, hey, you should go talk to this person. Here, let me do an email introduction for you. And then it ended up working out great. And that person's getting that game published through this other person that I'm not allowed to talk about. But being nice and being friendly, again, going back to that community thing we were talking about earlier, is like important. Like, it is a small industry, and we all know each other, even the people who make TTRPGs or the board games and stuff like that. So don't ever be a jerk to anybody. Ever. Even if they turn you down and you're upset, like, keep it to yourself and to your little like support circle. Don't be a jerk to anybody.
But there's an interesting part of that question, which is if you intend to do it yourself at some point, and you're, say, taking the advice of maybe I'll go to someone first and see how it's all run, there are a scope of publishers to pick from. You could pick a publisher that just takes it and runs with it and doesn't talk to you. So I wouldn't pick one of those. I would pick someone hungry, maybe someone who's crowdfunding that wants some help from you, because at Cardboard Alchemy, for example, we bring the designers into a Slack. We talk to the designers all the time, but those same designers say, oh, I was just at this company and I wasn't invited in the whole process. So if you think you're going to do it someday, maybe pick someone to partner with that wants your input and wants your feet on the ground so you can learn some things as you go. You know, you could definitely pick a big one that will give you, see, there's the other advantage is if you didn't intend to do it yourself, you could pick one that's going to let you work on the next one while they take that ball. But if you yourself want to take the ball, then pick someone who is going to let you see inside a little bit. And there are some that do that.
Yeah, there's so many, and I would say depending on what avenue you want to choose, whether you want to go the mass route or the retail hobby route, each have their different rule sets and different ways you're looking. Publishers will look for virality, self-marketing, sales, numbers. This is if you've already like kind of tested the market, who you are, and does it resonate with people. Like that's important too, because other publishers might want to work directly with you and, okay, cool, can I have dinner with this person and talk about the game and it feels like I'm hanging out with a friend versus someone who is going to be kind of, this is my game, I don't want to make any changes, don't talk to me. So it's like, how flexible are you in that regard too? Yeah, right here in the front. Yeah,
Do you mean MSRP, like what people are purchasing it for, or like how much it costs to make, to produce?
The cost of goods.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. It really heavily depends on it depends on the components. It depends on how it's being distributed. So if you're going to be selling it yourself, then kind of the general rule in the industry is like it should be whatever your cost of goods is, you should be selling it for like 5 times the MSRP. So if it costs $1 to make, it should cost at least $5 to the consumer.
Yeah, I even go 6 times now.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
6 or 7.
But if you are going through distribution, if you're going through like a big distributor, you might be only getting 30% of whatever that profit is, in which case you need to be looking more at like 1 to 10. So if it's going to cost $1 to print, then it needs to be at least $10 for the consumer. So I would say like a small box game, it also 100% depends on how many you order. Because if you're ordering 500 of those tiny games, it's going to cost like $5 a box. If you order 2,000 of them, it could go down to like $1 or $2 a box.
And when you email a manufacturer, they'll ask you quantity. So I remember when I was coding my first card game, I asked one manufacturer in India and I asked another manufacturer in China, several in China. And then they would come back and they said, well, you buying 1,000 or, you know, this is our minimum's 500 or you're buying 5,000. And I would say, can I get the numbers for all of those so that I know what the range is? And then you'll find out, oh, it's actually affordable to me if it's 5,000, but I don't know how to make, I don't have a 5,000 order, so I can't do that one. My first card game, What the Food, I got only 400 backers on Kickstarter, and I chose to print 1,500 decks because the distributor told me that after you sell your 400, we need a minimum of 1,000 to do anything with that. So I got prices for 1,000 and 2,000, and then ended up picking the 2,000 and just had some extra. But I had to make sure I could get that much money for the 2,000. But the quotes they're very friendly. There's a lot of manufacturers that are willing to give you a quote, because there's a lot of hungry manufacturers out there.
Yeah, always get at least 3 quotes.
Yeah, right.
And tell them you're getting quotes from other people.
Yes, of course. You want them to be competitive as well.
On top of that, you should also be thinking about early, thinking about how you're going to get rid of those games. And that is marketing in any way you can. And that could be conventions, it could be selling out of a van, it could be ads, it could be anything, but you need to be able to, like, it's not just making the games and then having them, because that storage is going to cost you money if that's the case, or it's just filling your house with games and you're living on top of boxes. You need to figure out how you're going to get those out, and you need to have some kind of a plan to tell people that your game exists.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to add, a little bit more to that of what you said. If you start from the very beginning of your game, and let's talk about a card game, for example. Very easy components, not going to have any metal or wood to it. For 1 year of inception, from hiring your graphic designers to marketing to not paying yourself to shipping to going to different conventions, you're probably looking around $35,000 to $50,000 of your own money to probably put into that, with fees included with Kickstarter and all that stuff. Now you're hoping to make that money back or break even or lose a little bit to make some money after. So that's probably, I would say, is what you're looking at, and obviously negotiate with your manufacturers as well. Be like, hey, you asked for the 2,000, you asked for the 3,000. Hey, can you do 1,000 for the 2,000 cost? And you'd be surprised how often they'd probably say yes. So yeah, right here.
So, for most of you all being self-published, what circumstances or what kind of game would it require for you to go to a publisher? What are the circumstances that would make you comfortable with that?
That's a great question. Right now, Ixion is only publishing one game, which is Sovereign, which is the big magnum opus game. We also make goofy party games that don't really fit the brand as of now, and also are kind of designed to do well in spaces like Target and Walmart. We don't have any sort of distro avenue that we have established. And in that case, we're going to be pitching those small party games to other publishers who already have distribution set up. There's just no way for us to easily get into that avenue. Distribution is like it's like a whole different beast that we just haven't tackled yet. So anything that is that small game that we would like to see in Target or Barnes & Noble, we're gonna pitch it to somebody else.
Yeah, one very important thing about being an independent publisher is that like you are your brand in many cases. So like your face becomes your brand, just like any other influencer thing. And you have to like somehow find a way to take any idea you have and either pigeonhole it into your brand structure, expand that structure as much as you can, or get it out away from what you've already made. So in the case of like Sovereign, if you've seen it on the floor, that's a very specific looking game. It doesn't really fit with a wacky party game sitting next to it. And so if we want to publish that ourselves and we want to get these games out, we would have to have a secondary imprint to get that out, likely, because the overlap between our customer base is probably very low. And the expense of actually testing that and finding out if our customer base overlaps is very high. And like Cassandra said, if you have a small, and I think everybody said this, if you have a small game, many times the cost at this point can be higher to get a small game out than a big game. The ultimate rewards could also be extremely high. A $15 game that's selling at Walmart and Target is going to bring back massive rewards if it's a success in ways that hobby cannot give you. But you're probably not going to be doing that as a first-time indie design company. That's not going to happen. And so in that case, you should be probably giving that off to somebody who has a lot more historical experience, and they have that infrastructure in place rather than pouring your own money into it while you are also learning on the ground. That could be very dangerous to you, depending on what your game is and how you want to move forward.
Or you have to have as much energy and enthusiasm as Josh. then you're fine.
I mean, I would also add that miniatures was a category that I got into after I had done a couple, and I used Breaking Games' money to do that. I basically said, listen, I can't do this. I need somebody to take the R&D. I need someone to figure out all this parts. That was something that, I mean, had a budget, art budget of $65,000, and the miniatures had molding costs, and we were doing little sound bases on the things. I knew I didn't have that infrastructure. Once I figured all that stuff out, Cardboard Alchemy has now taken on minis in all of the games we've done because I now have that background, and I am trying to tackle with Whisperwood the hardest ones I've ever done. Arguably, they're very difficult because they're lighting up and there's all sorts of stuff going on, but I would never try that first. So if you have so I think what we're saying is like a very small project that seems like mass might be handled by a machine, a marketing machine, and distro relationships. And a very big game is not the one you want to lead out with. So there's a middle ground, right?
Yeah, I want to also add to that. Right now in the gaming industry, it's very scary. It's very turbulent. Obviously, the last couple of years, we know what's happened with tariffs and what can change at any given moment. So you've noticed a lot of kind of bigger publishers like the Op or something like that have gone to more card-based games or smaller games because of the cost. So the first thing the publisher is probably going to ask you is, how much does this game cost you to manufacture? Because that's the first thing on everyone's mind is, can I afford this game? Exactly what Peter was saying is, if you've established yourself from a a smaller game to now making bigger games, your name now carries a lot of weight. So they trust you. They know who you are. You now have maybe a mass amount of fans that like buy your game because of the name on it, because they know who you are and they trust your rule sets. They trust your mechanics. So it's definitely start small is my recommendation, and depending on where you want to go. The big thing with hobby games, you might have a really big Kickstarter. You might sell like 4,000 units in a Kickstarter. But the hard thing when it comes to those big heavyweight strategy games is, okay, what happens after the Kickstarter? Because retail stores are probably only going to buy maybe 1 to 2 to 3 units per store, if that, because they don't have a lot of space. So even though you had a big Kickstarter, what is the longevity of your business if you can't get into like a mass market or a bigger kind of area or distribution? So you'll see kind of games go really, really high and then kind of just fizzle out. And you're like, oh, I can't find this game anymore. Where is it? So you really have to kind of keep it going and treading. Yeah, I think we have room for a couple more questions. I want to get someone from the back. Yeah, right there in the back.
I was curious, when people pitch you games, what is like maybe a rough breakdown of like most common reasons you reject a game? Like, is it do they fit with publishers and mentioning cost, or is it like just a bad game? Just curious.
Why do you reject games? Because they insulted us.
I mean, I do actually. I had because at Breaking Games, I was the head of development, and I took there was 40 to 100 a year of games, and a lot of times it was, does the game fit our company and our brand, right? And if it doesn't fit the company, then you want to let that go. A lot of times it was also, does the game fit the cost, what it's trying to do? Does the game fit where, if it's there was a game we published called Expansity. I should have said no. I'd said yes, but it had so many plastic components on it, and the cost wasn't right, and that's why I should have said no. And the last one, which I used to joke around about, and I used to say, is the designer an asshole? Because there are so many people to work with, and there's creative, like when we were talking about like find a publisher you can partner with, that you jive with, it goes both ways, right? And I was always like finding out, oh, this designer doesn't want their design to change at all. Maybe I'll pick the designer who's flexible with their theme changing. So I personally, that seems like a dumb factor, but it has factored in so many times. So those are some of the reasons why I would reject it, is it doesn't fit the company, it doesn't fit itself from like from a profit standpoint, and then it doesn't fit a relationship. Those are the ways I would say.
Yes. It's premature for us. We are not yet taking pitches from other people, but we hope to get to that point. But from what we've talked about and what I've seen from other people, is it fun to work on? Are you fun to work with? It really is extremely important. Like having that chemistry there is very valuable. And also the margins are very important. Like how much is it going to cost to make and how much can we sell it for? Because it needs to be sustainable.
I don't know if I have that much to add. Like all of the things that Peter said, exactly that. I get so many pitches, and like this goes back to the thing we were talking about with emails. Don't just like random email people that are pitches for crunchy war games, and this is like, you've never looked at my website.
Oh, you
like,
should definitely look at who you're talking
yeah,
to.
absolutely. Like, dude, like I like playing that type of game sometimes. That is not the type of game I make. And my like pastel purple like website with like the little happy characters all over it immediately would telegraph that to you. So when you are pitching, like, again, look on the websites for what people are looking for, but also just like vibe check it. Like, is my murder game going to fit in well with the vibe of this happy Golden Lasso like company? And that's the number one thing. I don't even often, you can tell too, when they like, Dear Golden. And it's like, okay, obviously your mass email program could not pick up my name is Kimmy. It thinks my name is Golden, which it is not. That's the name of the company. So just like make sure when you're making these pitches that you're tailoring them to the right companies and personalizing them, at least the right name on the thing. Those are the two fastest ways to get me to completely delete and ignore your email.
Yeah, I like to do the smell test. Open the box, smell the box inside, and if it smells good, we're doing it. Box needs to smell good. Any more questions? I think we have one more. Yeah, we'll go right here on the right.
So David mentioned earlier about the difficulties of manufacturing. How did you guys balance the design of the games with the manufacturing constraints, like components that could have been more complicated? And this probably goes more to your first
Oh no, it happens every time. But,
Yeah, how do you balance manufacturing with components you want to use, whether, deluxe versions, quality, etc.?
I'll go first since mine's easy. TTRPGs are books, so I'm like, okay, do I want gold embossed cover? Can I afford that? No? Okay. So it's very, very simple. I'm done.
Yeah, for me, I find materials very, very important. The feel of the game. You're joking about the smell of the box. That genuinely factored into how we chose our manufacturer.
I wasn't joking.
It mattered a lot how that box smelled. Some of that goes back to like childhood opening up like card games and stuff and loving how like the ink smelled off the printer. But there's longevity of components, and then there's just feel and just the pleasure of the tactile nature of these games. And so the manufacturing of these components, like there was definitely a cost question, but there was a hard limit on like this has to feel the right way. And at some point, it's just like we have to pay a certain amount to get that to feel a certain way, and that means there's going to be a limit on the manufacturers we can use, and some of the manufacturing techniques we can use, even if it's just a card game. So that was important to us, and all of our extra Kickstarter stuff, because when you're doing a Kickstarter, so much of that deluxe stuff is like these almost one-off material costs. They're very small runs of something that could be very complicated and relatively expensive. You just have to make sure that you are pricing it accordingly, and making sure that you expect that people will be paying what you think they'll be paying for these very small run, very like esoteric little objects that they'll be getting in the box for their deluxe stuff.
I was joking about the TTRPG, but honestly, like paper feel and stuff, you can get samples and compare that for cost and also the feel of the stuff. Some manufacturers will send it to you for free. Some will send you like, okay, if you pay for shipping or whatever, they'll send you boxes of samples of components with all the different options that can help you decide, okay, the quality and price and stuff, and paper feel.
They'll also have it at conventions. So if you find a manufacturer at a convention, go up to them and ask for a free sample. They'll typically have it.
Yeah.
And Panda is here, so you can get some stuff from Panda. Yeah.
Great. Just to kind of bookend what we just talked about for the manufacturing, another thing that you might want to realize is your Kickstarter is probably going to be your highest quality of your game because of all the tiers that you can add to kind of subsidize that cost. Now, there's a chance your game might get higher quality as it moves forward, but if you want to move into a more mass situation, your quality will go considerably down because you're just trying to get into as many stores as possible and as many kind of places as you can, and with distribution costs up to 63%, you're going to want to make those cost of goods as low as possible. All right, y'all. Thanks so much for joining our panel. Give it up for our guests. Heck yeah. Now, I don't want to speak for y'all, but if they had more questions, how can they find you or reach out to you?
Sure. Well, Cardboard Alchemy is in the exhibit, the dealer hall. So right in the front there, you'll see Whisperwood, which is the game we have on crowdfunding. We'll see Flamecraft Duels. There's chances to play it or talk to us. Brad Brooks, who's my co-founder, is right there. So we're happy to talk to you about any of it.
Yep, same thing. Sovereign is in the expo hall. Also, come and talk to me or Damon if you're interested in First Play LA, which is the play testing group in LA. It's fabulous. Started by Peter and currently run by Damon and I.
I'm not, I don't have a booth here today. If you want to see my band play, we're playing again at 2 o'clock over here. Random, like weird artsy person, I'm sorry. If you want to find my games, it's goldenlassogames.com. Again, it's TTRPGs. I'm also involved in a lot of like mentoring programs and things like that for TTRPGs. Story Games LA is a great place if you're doing TTRPGs to play test there. They are here and they're running the indie TTRPG room and stuff like that. And you can find me at Golden Lasso Girl on the internet, just about everywhere. If you have questions, I'm a teacher by day, so I love helping.
And Batman by night, right?
And then just in case you can't see us here, you can find Ixion Gameworks at fallofwormwood.com, as well as any Instagram or other handles in that way. And if you want more information on First Play, but you're not going to be able to go check it out here, you can check it out on Meetup. Just search for First Play LA on Meetup, and you'll find more information about that.
Heck yeah, y'all. Enjoy the rest of your LFG Con. Woo!